Hello, viewers, and welcome to TradeFlock. Today, we have with us Dr. Kavita Singh, who is the Asia Lead and Director South Asia for Drugs for Neglected Diseases Initiative. In this exclusive interview, we will discuss with Dr. Kavita about her work, India's healthcare ecosystem, challenges, and of course, her passion for solo traveling. So, welcome to the conversation, Dr. Kavita.
Thank you, Anamika. Nice to speak to you at TradeFlock.
Thank you so much. Dr. Kavita, before we jump to the question and answer, me and our audience would like to understand a little bit about you, your work, your personal and professional background. So if you could just brief us about that.
So, I'm on the other side of the 50. So I would say I've lived a nice, looking back, I would say I've lived a very adventurous and deeply fulfilling life, in 2 words. But of course, I've had a very long, nuanced career, personal life with a family and a child. So as my professional journey, if I would, a little bit deep dive here quickly, would be that for any medico, I would talk to myself as a medico. For any medico, there are lots of milestones in life. And those milestones are when you finish your, basic graduation, your MBBS degree, you take a decision, what next? What specialization would be next, which will be defining you. And then after when you finish your specialization, the next thing you look at is, should I go for a fellowship? Should I go for super specialization? And then the final path, the final decision-making time comes when you say, okay, what now? Do I, teach in a medical college? Do I do a government job, or do I go to the private sector? So, that's a standard way any medico approaches his professional journey. And for me also, of course, it meant a very similar, decision-making process. After finishing my graduation, something which I had not planned, but an opportunity came to me was to do my MD in microbiology at one of the country's most reputed organization or institute, which is the PGI at Chandigarh. So that was an unplanned decision, but which I know when I look back upon, perhaps was one of the best ones. Then I also say, you do an orbital maneuvering, you change the orbit in which you are going around. That's a time when I said, okay, let me try a little bit of, the pharma and biotech industry and not go the academic or the private sector path. Again, I say that was a defining moment for my own life. And the last change which I made, and which I will, whenever I talk about more, is which gave me the maximum fulfillment of being fulfilling my duty both as a doctor and as a national Indian nationalist, when I joined some mission programs with the government of India. So that's how I would look at my life in a big block, but with a lot of changes happening all the time in there.
So you spoke about the submission part that you've worked with the government of India. Could you highlight a little bit more about that? Because that's something which is very niche, and the entire process, what did it teach you that you still carry with yourself?
Thank you. Interesting. Especially when I look back to it, it was a time when COVID was also haunting us most of the time. So this was my phase of life between 2018 to 2021. And the Indian government, along with the World Bank, had launched this mission, which they call as the National Biopharma Mission, a $250 million investment in the country. And I was chosen to be the mission director for this mission. And the intent, the impact which this mission was is trying to make is that how do we enhance, the product development in our country, whether it's vaccines, it's diagnostics, it's devices, it's biosimilars. How do we strengthen our capacity? How do we strengthen human capital? How do we understand the technology transfer between academia and industry? And how do we, basically create the whole indigenous ecosystem, which sometimes we call as the tracks on which our health products move. Some great learnings which I personally had, and which I thought are also the legacy which the institute and the mission had, was how do we align with the various stakeholders are involved in this whole process, the stakeholder of entrepreneurs, of researchers, of industry, of government regulatory approvals, of the markets, of the patient, ultimately the patient centricity, which is critical. So how do you align and ensure that the last user of that whole effort is benefited? So those learnings, how do you understand everybody's way of looking at it, but still ensuring that you are working on a very meaningful pathway was excellent. And more than that, when after 3 years, when you look back upon the work which went behind it and the impact it achieved, it's extremely gratifying. And I think it was also perhaps destiny that while I was there, with this National Biopharma mission, we had, of course, all remember COVID. And so the same time, government also launched another mission, which was Mission COVID Suraksha, whose mandate was to develop vaccines. So that again, learning from immediately ramping up of what we did in Biopharma mission, because it was largely the similar ecosystem, but with a different objective, a different goal, a different product, which was required at the end of it. We again, but what we did this time, what we had learned, it helped us to really ramp it up very quickly to test at least few vaccine candidates. So we had some 1 or 2 in the end, which was available to our Indian public health systems. So, if you see this actually came at the fag end of my biotech and pharmaceutical industry career, and I could consolidate, I could complement the learnings of the industry and be sort of industry trained expert within the government system. So we saw extremely benefiting, the industry and the government's objectives both were met during this journey. So that's why I call it the most gratifying phase of my professional career.
So if you had to pick two of the biggest learning you had over the last 2.5 decades of your journey, or possibly three, what would that be, and how do you carry that right now as an individual as well?
Okay. So one is, when you're working on, especially for me and in the space I work in and many people work in, is when you're making a product for human use, the rigor, the scientific rigor and the discipline of developing it has to be huge. There can't be any shortcuts for a product which is supposed to save human life. That's one learning. And what I say is no shortcuts at all for anybody. The second learning, which I think also is that how critical it is to understand the other part of the story, or what I also call as, interdisciplinary understanding of different sectors. So while in industry, you look at what the commercial market needs and accordingly the science reacts. But when we're in the government sector, the public health sector, money, finances, or the return of investment is not the ask, but still the product or the molecule or any vaccine is the ask. So to align with the understanding of everybody. And the third thing which I learned is, which I also talk about a lot, is this whole space of translational research. It was not a subject which has been taught to us or introduced to us during our study days, even during my post-graduation days. But it's a space which is still sort of a unmet need in the country, and there is huge strength, huge strides which we can make, which can help us become what we are really hoping as a country to be more of an innovative environment. Mm-hmm. These three learnings largely for my professional, life.
Yeah. So, Dr. Kavita, you just spoke about translational services, research work. So, if you could highlight more about that, what industry is it, what work it's done there, and how's the ecosystem in India, which, like you mentioned, we still have a long way to go there. What should be done to catch up with the world in this sector?
Thank you, Anamika. I may not have all the answers, Anamika, but I will try to, from an individual's limited learning and exposure perspective. So let me, for our listeners' benefit, especially people who don't come from this industry, who come from some other industry, it would be interesting for them to understand that for any healthcare tool, I will not go to the nuance of it's a drug or it's a vaccine, because it will always, of course, need some sort of uh, customization to the healthcare product, but largely understanding any healthcare product would go through its journey of discovery and development. And so there are large four segments of that phase. There would be always a shelf and on the bench, what we do in the lab. Then there would be next segment of what we do in animals, small and large animals. Third is what we do as clinical trials. We all understood clinical trials because of COVID. I call it a dining table conversation now. And the fourth is, how do you ensure that the product which is developed reaches the patient for whom it has been developed? This looks like, it's like a bandwagon which goes from one part of the travel journey to next, but it's not so simple. Every time there is a movement from lab to animals, lab to clinics, or clinics to regulatory and market, there is this whole gap. Some people refer to it as valley. I would not prefer to call it as a valley. I call it's a process when this needs a rejig, because it's changing its gears, from lab to animals. So what is the sort of development you need at that point? So I call it, these are the different translational research phases, from lab to animal, animal to clinics, and clinics to patient population, which if you see in real time, needs a lot of expertise. And that's what, if you remember in a previous question, I had said the importance of interdisciplinary sciences and learning. And that's what I also call translational research, because that's a space, when you will see a pharmacologist, a medicinal chemist, a biologist, a toxicologist, manufacturing, regulatory, biostatistician, clinicians, they all work together. And this working together is extremely critical at different phases. What each of them contributes at different phases is different. But some people say we pass on the baton. I also avoid that terminology, because you really can't pass on the baton. Because sometimes you learn from a phase and you go back to the previous phase. You fix up the issue you have seen in the next phase, and again start off. There's a process where you say, okay, I will not take it forward. I'll throw away this block of mines or this product of mines. So that's what I refer to as translational research. In addition to a very friendly ecosystem, or a very facilitatory, if not very friendly, because it's a human product, but certainly a very facilitatory ecosystem which is required. And this is the space I say I'm extremely passionate about, and I feel we can do much more than we have presently in our country.
So where do you see India standing in terms of translational services or research? And uh, if there is any gap, are you working with the government bodies to fill in those gaps? Or from your personal side, are you working on anything to bridge that gap, build that skill, or uh, enlighten the masses regarding this particular service and its importance?
So one is, of course, I got the opportunity while I was working with the missions. That was a very, the missions objective, and it was delivered in that format. The other is that Indian pharmaceutical industry till quite some time back was totally focused on re-engineering existing products. So there was not much translational research required as such. We used to not talk about it much, because we were re-engineering an existing product, so we knew what the product development pathway looked like. So it sort of seemed seamless. But as for the last decade or so, and especially with the government's Atmanirbhar focus and focus on innovation, we see a lot of need of such expertise as very critical to our journey of innovation and development. I am presently working with, as a advisor or independent director in the board of a couple of companies, which helps me share this sort of experience with some young entrepreneurs, or with large companies which are trying to make development. I'm also working with an organization called Women Lift Health, where it's actually women with public who are sort of mentoring women in the global health space who may be in the last mile, which might be public health space, or you take products forward, or you understand the social determinants, challenges of a disease. So that's little downstream. So I'm trying to stay engaged. And at the moment, no, not working much with the government, but I'm really hoping I can do that. I'm also hoping in my next phase of life, I'm hoping to transition out of my present organization and take some new challenges, to talk about this concept as in the universities, in the medical colleges, in the hospitals, to make it understandable and let the students hear of it much earlier in the career or in their education journey than what I did, or what some of my fellow colleagues have done. So those are some of the ambitions as I go forward down the line.
So you just spoke about you being a director, independent director on a board where uh, you you try to address these gaps through your knowledge and acumen. Could you highlight more about that role particularly, and especially in this sector, in this service, and in this concept? Women leaders are very rare. So how do the industry take you and your ideas? How do they perceive?
Thanks, Anamika, again, but again, a very challenging one to answer, Anamika, because you're right in one, a very obvious observation that we do not have any women leaders sitting on that strategic table, across the table with when these decisions of strategic decisions, deep investment decisions are taken, and how should that be approached? Especially when we look at even entrepreneurial journeys, or we look at the products being made for women. Suppose, women, I also say that products specifically responding to women needs are not addressed. So the importance of our gender in that board is critical, and I'm certainly hoping. I've just started this work the last couple of years, and presently I'm only in two such large organizations. I'm on the independent director on the board. I'm hoping to do this, expand this work going forward, and I'm also hoping more women take up active roles in this, because it's important our voice is heard, our perspective is heard. It's important, we share that. Second, sorry, I forgot what was the second part of your question. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I forgot that.
So the second part was how's the industry perceiving your feedback and your ideas? How is it being taken by especially the male-dominated industry?
I don't see a challenge there. I'll be very honest on that. I've not faced any gender bias on good scientific feedback for any product development. The challenge bigger is that you're not many women there. But once you're there, I do see a conducive and a respectful environment when science is being discussed. Maybe I've been the lucky one. I've not experienced this sort of challenge or discrimination yet.
That's so nice. I would say the industry is really changing and adapting to something which is really needed at the time when India is looking forward to becoming a global superpower with Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India initiative, and looking at the healthcare
True.
needs, especially India is having. So all the
Very
best
true.
there, Dr. Kavita.
Thank you so
And
much.
now moving to the next section, which is knowing a little bit about your passion, which is long distance self-driving passion that you have. Could you tell us more about that, how it started and how it has shaped your personal growth as well? If you have any advice for the women uh, who are willing to do this, but somehow they aren't able to.
Sure. Yeah, you've touched upon really the thing I'm most passionate about. And, when I think about it, maybe I would say I inherited this because I come from my family of defense. My grandfather, father, brother, they all served in the army. So it means
Mhm.
I was in a family which was always moving from one place to other place. So movement, change was a part of my life. And that's why, sometimes we used to travel. Those are the days, I'm talking about 40 years back. Uh, we used to travel for so many days to reach to the station where my father would have got posted. So this life of a nomad is perhaps, I would say, I am the most alive when I'm on the move, when I'm not tied down to my laptop and the desk and the boardroom. I for for some years I had to hold on to this, and also that I'll be very honest in sharing. When my till my turns son, I would say, turned 18, I didn't do much of this. In fact, I didn't do it at all. It's when he left home for his education that I got down to this, and I ensure that at least do 1 or 2 road trips a year, traveling, because the thrill you get when you enter any country or any city or any village in your own vehicle versus you just fly into there is very different. When you cross terrains, when you cross cultures, when you cross cuisines, when you cross language, when you cross, one deep culture to the next, what does it does? It continuously forces you to adapt. It forces you to shed off the non-essential. It forces you to think outside your framework, which sort of boxes you as an individual. So that's what brings me to life. And I didn't realize I was doing it, but now since I've done something at the age of 50 and 55, I'm looking up to 60 now. I did a 50 days road trip to celebrate 50 years of my life, a healthy life, a happy, fulfilling life. And I drove in a convoy from India to London.
Wow.
And that was about 16,000 kilometers of non-stop driving. The second I did it when I turned 55 was from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. It was again a large convoy of women, all women driving, solo drive, which I did at 55. And like I say, eyes down for 60 now.
So what's the next one, your next destination?
No, I yet to think and dream of it. It's not there yet. But I shall. If I'm alive, I shall do that.
Uh, all positive.
Thank you.
Before we conclude, Dr. Kavita, I would like to, just put on the last question to you. And we know you have done so much in your personal life and your professional life, but what does the future hold for you? Where do you see yourself? Though you mentioned that you want to go to the universities and share your ideas and thoughts about the translational services and enlighten the kids there, the students early on. Is there anything else that's in your mind?
I think I'm hoping to reinvent myself again, once again, build on, of course, to the experience which has come over the years of work in the industry and with the government. So that's a part I already talked to you about on, how do we empower our next generation to learn about this subject much better? Because innovation really is the key, which is going to fuel India's self-sustainable growth. Our signing of various WTOs and agreements do limit us from re-engineering, and innovation is the ask. So that experience, I would certainly like to, like you also said, reiterated, through students, through young doctors, through young clinicians, young engineers, talked that how critical this translational research space is. The second, of course, which I said as a director on the board. The third is, which I'm really yet to look for, rediscover on how to do it, is the contribution to these ecosystem challenges which each one of us is facing now. Whether those are, I come from the state of Punjab, and the thing which really worries me is now this depleting water level, depleting water table. Our bore wells are only going deeper and deeper and deeper. So if that's something I am discussing with some friends, old-time friends, if we can do, we are in that stage of life, and a much more deeper engagement with the communities we come from, be relevant to them, is also an ask. So I'm hoping to do much more of these in the next the next few years of my life. Like you said, fingers crossed.
So anything else that you would like to add to the conversation, Dr. Kavita?
No, I will thank you for this opportunity so much, and thank you for giving me the space to talk about translation research. But it's because it's not often get a platform to talk about it, to highlight the importance of this space, and to also highlight that sometimes just linear growth or the linear movement of anybody's journey is not really the ask. Sidestepping, side learning from others, other phases of your life, equally feed into your and make your life much more enriching. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time today, Dr. Kavita, and wish you all the best for your future endeavors. And we would wait to hear about your 60th birthday and the journey.
Thank you.
Take care, Dr. Kavita. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye bye.